What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Let's talk waiver wire on fantasy football today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It's Tuesday, October 7th, and Omarion Hampton is on IR. We need running back replacements once again. We've got a lot of tight ends with really good matchups coming up, including both Browns tight ends. How about the Patriots DST? They've been good in 4 of 5 weeks, and their upcoming schedule is so good. Saints, Titans, Browns, Falcons. Their next 4 games. A lot of good matchups coming up for some of these players that we're going to talk about on the waiver wire. Woo, good morning. I'll tell you, it was a good morning as a dad. My son is like obsessed with Trevor Lawrence. He's 7 years old. And when he woke up and I got to show him the highlight of Trevor Lawrence falling and getting back up and falling again and scoring a touchdown, he was pumped. What a fun game last night, guys. Are the Jags for real? Duval?
You just saw him, Chris Jones playing defense on that play. Are the Jags for real? Yeah, of course the Jags are for real. I mean, this defense is creating a lot of turnovers. They're finding ways to win. It's not pretty. If you listen to Liam Cohen's post game locker room talk, you know, he understands that very well. But look, when you could be 5-0 in the loss that they had to Jake Browning, essentially, like this is a division that's clearly winnable. You know, it's between them and the Colts at this point. I think the Texans have a chance to get back into it, but it's a brutal schedule still for them. So you're looking at one of those two teams, and not both can make the playoffs. One could potentially, you know, if they are able to get some luck, you know, if one gets really hot between the Jaguars or the Colts, can maybe get the 1 seed if the Bills have a loss or two along the way, because the division is so winnable if they can beat each other, sweep the other one. But yeah, Jacksonville's definitely for real, without a doubt. You know, this is one of the teams that new coach influence, new regime influence, make the playoffs next year. You know, and then we see if it's sustainable or not. But I mean, look, they're finding ways to get the job done.
Good for them. Fun season in the AFC South. Indianapolis and Jacksonville tied atop the division at 4-1. All right, on to more pressing matters. Top 3 waiver wire priorities. Dave, I'm going to let you go first. Is that a Raiders jacket?
No, you ask this every time. When do the Raiders ever wear blue, Adam?
I don't remember.
It's the old NFL equipment logo. This is It's turned into a relic, like us. Mason Taylor's the first name on my list. I love what we've seen from him as far as snap share all year long. The targets over the last 2 weeks have been great. He needs to continue to get that volume. I don't see why he doesn't. I kind of feel like he's in that mold of start him, but don't necessarily watch him because he's not an outstanding athlete. Takes him a little while to get open still, but he's getting a ton of short targets because Justin Fields likes to check down a lot, and I think it keeps going. So he's my favorite guy to get. It would be Kamani Vidal. If I thought that Kamani Vidal was a really talented running back, and if he was a really talented running back, he would have been drafted a lot sooner than the 6th round once upon a time. And B, if I was convinced that he would be the main guy for the Chargers next 4 weeks, no questions asked, as the main replacement for Omarion Hampton. But he's second for me. And obviously, if you lost Hampton or if you need a running back in general, yes, you can put Kamani Vidal first because he should get an opportunity. But Hassan Haskins is there. He's going to take work away. I do not think Haskins is a top 3 ad, but he's somebody that I think could end up being helpful in fantasy. I just don't know for how long Kamani Vidal will be helpful in fantasy. Third is Kendre Miller. It's a long-term play, and he's only available in about a third of CBS leagues, probably a little bit more on other sites, but he's eventually going to take over the Saints backfield. It's happening. And he's been playing really well, double-digit carries each of the last 2 weeks. Should see a lot more at some point by, I don't know, let's call it week 9, week 10.
Oh, man. First of all, Mason Taylor is one of the guys I highlighted as having great matchups. Now, Denver this week, not necessarily a great matchup, although they're usually better against wide receivers than they are tight ends. But then after that, Carolina, 31st. Cincinnati, 32nd against tight ends. Those are the matchups for Taylor after Denver. Then they get a bye, then Cleveland, then New England, 28th against tight ends, and Baltimore, 23rd. Baltimore should be a lot healthier by then. I always take tight end fantasy points allowed with a grain of salt, especially early in the season. Really matters who you played. But I think Carolina and Cincinnati are legitimately great matchups, and that's what Taylor gets in weeks 7 and 8. I don't know if I agree about the Kendre Miller thing because, I don't know, taking over Kamara, but We'll talk about it later. Jamie, who are your top 3 waiver wire priorities?
Kendrick Bourne is one, with the idea of if Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are out, we are still in wide receiver hell. And what he did last week with Mac Jones and the matchup he has against Tampa Bay, he's easily number 1 for me. Mason Taylor would be 2. The one thing I would caution with Mason Taylor, and everything Dave said is right, and everything you said about the matchups is right, but you kind of alluded to this. There's a lot of tight end options this week. It's probably the deepest that we've seen in any position of players that could be helpful for you if you're in a 1-week situation. So let's just say you're the George Kittle manager that has been sort of going week to week. There's about 5 guys that you can use this week that I think can get you by. So you don't have to necessarily break the bank for Mason Taylor. But if you need a tight end long term, I do think Taylor has the most sustainability. If Kenneth Gainwell is still out there, I would still go get him. There is the report that Jaylen Warren is going to return this week, but we still don't know how this usage is going to look like after what Gainwell did with the best running back performance for the Steelers so far this season. And so the options for the Chargers backfield are clearly the most available to you and potentially the most upside. It's also potentially the biggest mess that we could have of any team this season. And I don't think they're done adding to their backfield. So get ready for the Gus Edwards signing that's going to happen at some point this week. So Vidal is my preferred choice of the Chargers guys, but it might be Haskins, and that's just going to make you vomit. The only thing I think that's encouraging for the Chargers short term is who they play in week 6, and that's the Miami Dolphins. So hopefully whoever gets the majority of touches does well with them, and then we have that guy for the next 3 games, if that's the length of time that Hampton's going to miss. I hope it's not more than the 4 games. But for this week, I think if you end up chasing the wrong Chargers running back and spending too much fab on that particular guy, you're going to be a little bit upset.
Well, I have 2 questions about Michael Carter. One of them is, how do you feel about Vidal right now compared to whoever your favorite Cardinals running back was last week?
Felt much better about Carter because they have used him in this role before. We saw last year when J.K. Dobbins was injured and Gus Edwards was doing nothing. They didn't even give Vidal a chance. Yeah. And so the concern is that do they trust him? You know, for a guy that's been on the practice squad, and Haskins is a guy that Harbaugh coached in college. Like, does he get the opportunity to be the lead guy? So we had 2 drives in the game against the Commanders with Hampton sidelined, and the playing time was 60-40 in favor of Vidal. They had the same amount of carries. They had the same amount of catches. The route participation was 1 in favor of Vidal. So, like, there's no real clear cut. One is going to be more involved than the other. And so
it could be. I'm sorry to cut you off, Jamie. Were you done?
No, go ahead.
All right. I feel like Vidal is Carter and Haskins is DeMercado. But Haskins is a worse version of DeMercado, and Vidal is a worse version of Carter. And if they don't, they've got a running back on the practice squad that I want to bring up. His name is Amar Johnson, who's short, small, fast, decent pass catcher, had a good preseason in Green Bay. I don't know if they promote him or they go and sign another running back off the street or whatever. But I do feel like he could end up, I think he's like an interesting dynasty stash. And it kind of breaks my heart that I have to say that on the air because I don't want Jamie or anybody else in our dynasty league to go and pick him up. I want to get him.
I will not be picking him up. He's all yours.
Yeah. Okay, good. But, and I don't even know if he's going to end up being a thing, but that's a deep dynasty stash. If the Chargers don't add anybody, I would suspect that they move him into the active roster, and doesn't mean he's going to get every single carry, but if they don't like Vidal, and Haskins is a slug, man, like he's good in pass protection, and he played 3 of 5 third downs that they had after Hampton got hurt last week. I don't see it. I'd be really surprised if Haskins ended up being their main back. Vidal had all their snaps inside the 10. They had 3 of them against the Commanders after Hampton's injury, and Vidal had them all. I'm not excited about the talent, but as we know, opportunity matters the most. And I think Vidal, as long as the Chargers don't add anybody else, they don't sign Gus Edwards, etc., I think Vidal gets the better opportunity.
Yeah, right. And I think people weren't that excited about Michael Carter, but then you see him go out and get almost every touch and score a touchdown and have 5 catches. And they throw to their running back,
fumble at the goal line.
Yeah. They throw to their running backs a lot. I mean, Amari and Hampton was getting a lot of work in the passing game. So I could see, even if you're not that excited about Vidal, remember, it's at least 4 weeks for Hampton. They haven't given us a timetable here that I've seen. And we've got only 2 teams on bye this week, 2 teams on bye next week, but it's Baltimore and Buffalo. So you got 2 must-start running backs. Well, we thought we had 2 must-start running backs. And then you got the bye-nado after that with 6 teams on bye. Right? You got to get through at running back. So I think Vidal is going to be probably the most added player. There's only 1%.
Oh, I think they both will. I mean, again, you're running waivers on Tuesday. You're not going to hear a peep from the Chargers unless there's a signing about who's better than the other, who's going to get more work than the other. You know, I would be very surprised if anybody covering that team, no disrespect to them, has that information said to them. So we're not going to know until they probably get on the practice field and you get here's the guy taking the first rep. And then the next time through their drills, it could be a flip-flop of who it is. So the only thing I would caution is like Carter was worth spending some money on.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is not one of those type of situations. You know, you could be buying a flex because it's the Dolphins, and it might be both of them. It might be what is. We're still talking about a terrible offensive line. We're still talking about a quarterback who in the first 3 weeks of the season was their leading rusher and just had a 60-yard rushing game. Like, this is going to fall a lot on Justin Herbert. And so this is not, you know, run game that's going to come in and support this team. This is going to be run game that's going to come in and supplement whatever they're able to accomplish, because it could be ugly. Like, this could be the best Dolphins run defense performance that we see because these guys are so bad.
Okay. So my other question about I don't know if it's Dave's top 3 with Mason Taylor, Kamani Vidal, Kendre Miller. Jamie's was Kendrick Bourne, Mason Taylor, Vidal?
No, it was Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell. Okay, sorry. I don't know if we ever got to that. All right, so Gainwell, even though he did say that, even though Jalen Warren, there was a report that he's expected to play.
There are B reporters that say that Warren will not only be back but still have the feature role.
Okay. So
I disagree with Jamie. I don't disagree with Jamie at all. Like, I've got Gainwell on a couple of teams, and I am not going to cut him unless I am desperate for a roster spot.
Okay, so my next question is, if Rico Dowdle and Michael Carter are available, how does that change things? Because Rico Dowdle is 59% rostered on ESPN and Yahoo. Rico is 71% rostered on Sleeper. Michael Carter, I mean, the waiver wire is based on guys who are rostered in 65% of leagues or less. Michael Carter is 66% rostered, so he's very much available in CBS leagues, and then 39% rostered on Yahoo, 42% rostered on ESPN, 59% on Sleeper. That's Michael Carter. So, Jamie, if Rico Dowdle and Michael Carter are part of this discussion, then what are your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, Dowdle would be 1 overall or running back?
Overall.
Overall, Dowdle would be 1, Carter would be 2, and then Kendrick Bourne would be 3.
Mm-hmm.
Dave?
Dowdle 1, Carter 2, Taylor 3. And the only reason why I don't have Kendrick Bourne in my top 3 is because I'm thinking a little bit more long-term. Plus, there's the chance that some guys come back this week for the 49ers and Bourne loses that upside that we saw on Thursday.
Can I make the case that Carter should be ahead of Dowdle just because you've got another at least 3 games of Michael Carter as the starter?
I would take the 1-game scenario of Rico Dowdle this week versus the 3-game scenario of Michael Carter, to be honest with you, because Dowdle is going to have a good game against the Cowboys.
But we don't know that Chuba's out, do we?
We don't know for sure.
Okay, I'll rephrase. If we know that Rico Dowdle, that we know that Chuba Hubbard's out this week, which is what it seems like.
Yeah. What'd they say? He was week to week?
And I'd be very surprised if after what he did, knowing that he's playing his former team and what Dave Canales said at Monday's presser about how they may have to split touches between the 2 of them, which was happening already. Like, this just feels like he's going to give him the opportunity to play well in this. Give him the opportunity to get touches in this game, whether he plays well or not it's hard to say. But like, Carter could easily have 3 miserable games.
Yeah, he makes me nervous.
He doesn't play Tennessee anymore. It's Indianapolis, Green Bay, then a bye. And then he does have Dallas. That could be good. And then after that, we could start seeing. After that, I believe Benson's eligible to return.
As much as he makes me nervous, I would start him over Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara this week.
Yeah. Indianapolis' run defense isn't really that great. They're allowing 4.5 yards per carry. I think 6th best against.
He had 5 catches. Like, he's going to be involved.
I hope so.
Sure. But it's not Tennessee. It's not going to be like last week.
All right. We've got a couple things I want to tell you about. First of all, 1 p.m. Eastern today, we're on CBS Sports Network doing this waiver wire thing. If we have any more updated information. You got to make sure you pay attention to that and join us on CBS Sports Network every Tuesday and most Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern for Fantasy Football Today. Beat the Waiver Wires, a FFT Express episode that Dave and I have been doing on Thursdays, and Dave has been really on point. He's been crushing it. Talked about Sam Darnold. Talked about, who else did you talk about? Mason Taylor.
Mason Taylor and Sam Darnold were big-time priorities on that show.
And the week before, I forget, you did great. So congratulations. So nicely going.
It's a fun thing that we do. I think all of our waiver stuff generates on this show every Tuesday.
Yeah.
But things change during the week, and we want to start talking about players to just put on the bench in case we need them, as a bye week replacement for the week after, or as someone that could end up breaking out. And there are players that we will talk about on this show that have some amazing long-term potential. I can't wait to talk about them. But that Thursday show is fun, and it's short. It's not that long. 10 minutes of your time to help your fantasy team get better.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. That'll be short as well. And come back, we'll talk about Fab, news and notes. We'll get to the top 3 at each position. We'll give you the DSTs that you should be picking up this week, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. All right, so how much Fab are we spending on? Anyway, I think let's say Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins. Dave's got this look on his face like, no.
I got this look on my face like I'm smelling rotten food in my fridge. And now I'm getting flashbacks to my college days. It's not going to be that much. I think the manager that's got Omari and Hampton and can't get their hands on any other running backs can probably get away with like 15%, and every other manager probably won't go higher than 10%.
Okay. And then, Jamie, you said you really like Kendrick Bourne. How much would you spend on him?
Oh, again, I'll keep saying the same thing. Like, these receivers are not worth breaking the bank for, because there's the potential, especially for Bourne, in the case of Bourne, there's the potential of one of the 2 guys returning, which could clearly make him irrelevant. But with the injuries that they're dealing with in the case of Pearsall, and then the injuries for Jennings that continue to mount up, like, we could see him still in a prominent role. But we've seen these type of receivers come and go throughout the course of the first 5 weeks of the season. So 10% at most.
What if Calvin Ridley were available, guys? He's about 70 to 80% rostered on our site, ESPN, Yahoo, and Sleeper. If Calvin Ridley were available, how much would you throw down for him?
15%.
10%.
Okay. A little bit more aggressive for Jamie. Would you rather have, if they were both on your waiver wire, would you take Rico Dowdle or Calvin Ridley?
Dowdle.
Rico.
Michael Carter or Calvin Ridley?
Carter.
Michael Carter.
Kamani Vidal or Calvin Ridley?
Mr. Carter.
Ridley.
Who'd you ask that?
I don't know. Fonzie. Is that Fonz? That's Fonz.
No, I'm going to make you look that one up. But that is an old head reference for sure.
Okay. I asked, Calvin Ridley or Kamani Vidal?
It's not even Carter. Like it's Cotter that I said, but it sounded like Cotter, or Carter, so I said it like that.
Yeah, but
I'm stuck in 1974.
Isn't that Happy Days?
No.
What is it?
Welcome back, Cotter.
Oh, I thought they were the same show. I think I'm picturing the same exact show. All right, whatever. Who cares? Let's go. I guess these are news and notes. I'll throw it off. Before we do that, I knew there was something else I had to tell you. It's time for football at BetMGM. Register with BetMGM to get instant access to the best variety of parlay selection features, no sweat and boost tokens, live betting options, and much more. New players can receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets with the bonus code FANTASY if they don't win their first bet. You don't want to miss out on any of the hard-hitting action at BetMGM. Place your moneyline, parlay bets, and more today. BetMGM, make it legendary. And use that promo code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, news and notes. So we could get a quarterback change in Cincinnati. Zach Taylor hasn't ruled it out. Kevin O'Connell from Minnesota didn't say who would start after the bye, but Carson Wentz is now dealing with a shoulder injury. So we'll see what they do. They have Philadelphia, the Chargers, the Lions, the Ravens. Tough schedule for Minnesota after the bye. And then Chicago, Green Bay, Seattle. Jeez, brutal schedule for them. Kyler Murray briefly left the game with a foot injury, came back in, but he's going to be monitored as he deals with this foot injury. Arizona is at Indianapolis this week. Running back news, unfortunately, Antonio Gibson is out for the season with the knee injury. Omarion Hampton on IR with an ankle injury. The next 4 games are Miami, Indianapolis, Minnesota, and Tennessee. We don't know the timetable for Hampton, but he's out at least 4 weeks. Saquon Barkley's got the Thursday game against the Giants. He has some soreness. He missed practice or was listed as a DNP, but he should play. As we just talked about twice, Jaylen Warren expected to play. And Tyler Bidet left with a shoulder injury. We have a Tyler Bidet themed team name for Team Name Tuesday later. Darius Slayton left with a hamstring injury, and they've got the Thursday game, so we may not see Darius Slayton. But Dan Quinn is optimistic about Terry McLaurin playing this week, so that would be wonderful against the Bears. Calvin Austin for the Steelers. He's injured. He could go on IR. We're expecting Darnell Mooney back. And Christian Watson's 21-day practice window is open. So Christian Watson should be back sometime in the next 3 weeks. Pretty cool. Speedy recovery. At tight end, George Kittle likely out this week.
Too, right?
Thank you.
Also could come off of IR this week.
George Kittle likely out this week, but has a good chance to return in week 7. Kind of bummed about Brenton Strange leaving with a hip injury yesterday. Looks really good out there.
You jinxed him.
He's got a great matchup. With Seattle, 30th against tight ends. So
you mushed him yesterday.
I did.
Well, I didn't have him in the early waiver wire show that we do on Monday. And you said, "Oh, what about Brenton Strange? He's 63% roster." And I left him out because it was the game Monday night. So I was going to add him depending on what he did. And you're like, "Oh, he's got a great matchup. He's going to be awesome. I'm going to mush him."
Arizona tight end Tip Ryman out for the season with an ankle injury. Landon Dickerson has an ankle injury for the Eagles. Not sure if he'll be able to play against the Giants. Minnesota center's on IR. Jacksonville center left with an injury last night. Buffalo center left with a hand injury. I think he came back in. But big one here, Denver offensive guard Ben Powers is out. Why did I say he's out for the season? He's out for much of the season, though. He's going to miss maybe 2 months. So very good offensive guard for one of the best offensive lines in football. So both for the Eagles and the Broncos, we've got injuries to a very important offensive guard on one of the best lines. And we'll stop it there. All right, Jamie, let's get the top 3 at each position, beginning with quarterback. Who are our top 3 quarterbacks this week?
Sam Darnold would be one, coming off the game that he just had. He's kind of, like I said, prior to Sunday, he's been living in that 18 to 20 point per game range. In the 3 games prior to facing Tampa Bay, and then he goes for 35 in his best performance, or 32, in his best performance, 30 fantasy points, because he threw 35 attempts. So, or 34 attempts, nine more than his average. So hopefully we get a little bit more volume. I think it's a good enough matchup against Jacksonville that you can buy into starting him, at least in deeper leagues. He doesn't crack my top 12, but he's just outside of it, which is kind of where he was living. I kind of go back and forth for who's 2, because if Mac Jones starts, which seems like it's going to be the case, I do like him better for this week with his matchup against Tampa Bay, based on what we saw, especially if he gets some help at wide receiver. But Tua, coming off, ironically, his best game of the season in the first game without Tyreek Hill, also not a matchup I think you have to fear against the Chargers at this point, at least, again, from a low-end starting point. So starting standpoint, there's not a must-start quarterback for this week, but I think all 3 of these guys are in the streaming conversation.
This is probably not the position that's going to require a lot of ad drops, just because we have CJ Stroud and the Minnesota guys on bye. So obviously Lamar Jackson out, but hopefully you're not scrambling for quarterback. Dave, running back, top 3.
Assuming you can't get your hands on Dowdle or Michael Carter, it's Vidal 1, Kendre Miller number 2, Kenneth Gainwell number 3. And it's with the idea that Vidal's going to get the opportunity now in LA. You need to pay attention in the news to make sure it stays that way. Kendre Miller will get an opportunity long-term, and he's playing a little bit right now. So as a bye week running back, he's not bad. And I didn't mean to poo-poo Gainwell earlier by saying that reporters think that Warren is still going to be the main guy and that Gainwell's going to go back to barely touching the ball. He'll still get a little bit more work than he was getting before. At least I assume that he will. But is he just more of like a handcuff to Jaylen Warren than anything else? Or is he now the Steelers' new 1B where maybe it is 40%, and we don't know. And that's why there is intrigue in picking up Kenneth Gainwell. I just wouldn't prioritize it unless we knew for sure that the Steelers were going to pivot to Gainwell and make him their 1A, in which case he'd be the hottest guy to pick up off the waiver wire. But those are my top three: Vidal, Miller, Gainwell.
Don't forget, the Steelers are also playing the Browns, which we consider, arguably the toughest matchup. That's who they have this week. And then after that, they have the Colts, I believe. No, they have the Bengals. Okay, then the Colts.
That would be a good one.
And the Packers, then the Colts. I knew they had the Colts at some point. So it's Browns, Bengals, best matchup, worst against running backs, Packers, Colts for the Steelers.
Yeah, I will say, just in regard to the Gainwell situation, the beat writers are speculating. That has nothing, because I'm sure Dave and I read the same stuff, like that he's going to get his job back in terms of Jalen Warren. But we don't know exactly what this will look like. And so if you're talking about the Chargers and their splits, or Gainwell getting more work on his team, I would take the chance on Gainwell getting more work on his team than the Chargers split. If we knew there was one guy for the Chargers, and we can speculate that it's Vidal, so if we want to go that route, that's fine. But it's just something that I think at this point we don't know. And again, I don't rule out them bringing somebody else in off the street. The Gus Edwards thing was a joke. I hope it's not Gus Edwards, but they can still bring in somebody that they may feel has an opportunity to help them. And if that player does help them, then you may get the thumbs up as a big, hey, like something like Fonzie might say. So
just those would not be happy days if that happened.
Just something to keep in mind there when you have that ready to go, that you could get a little happy days feel.
I think
there we go.
I think these 70s sitcoms. I think the 70s sitcom jokes have jumped the shark.
Oh, very good. I don't like it when Jamie and Thomas work in cahoots against me like that. Okay.
It's pretty good though.
It was good. It was good.
YouTube and see Adam as the Fonz.
All right. So Vidal, Kendrick Miller, Kenneth Gainwell. However, the big caveat is if Rico Dowdle's available, he's number one. If Michael Carter's available, he's number two. Okay. Wide receivers. We haven't really talked much about the wide receivers. Dave, who are your favorites?
Bourne's number one at wide receiver. This is assuming that you can't get your cloppies on one of the Packers wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden. Maybe they were dropped going into the bye, but if they're out there, they're only available in like smaller 10-team leagues on CBS. But if they're out there in your leagues, man, go get them, especially Doubs. I think that he really kind of earned what his role should be moving forward in the Green Bay offense. Bourne's number one. It's a temporary short-term deal because we know that once Pearsall's back, and assuming one of Kittle or Juwan Jennings comes back, this could be 2 weeks, Bourne's volume is going to go way, way down. Rashid Shaheed is second for me. I like the big catch they had last week. We know that he's got that upside. He's had at least 8.2 PPR points in each game this year. That's not an exciting number, but when we're talking about bye week replacements, maybe number 3 receivers, he can be that guy for New Orleans. He could also be on the trade block from New Orleans. So that's someone who can end up in a better situation and be a factor or number 2 target getter for another team, a team that's better than New Orleans. I had a tough call between Darnell Mooney or Trey Tucker. I'm just going to take the safer route, which is Mooney. I know he hasn't been great this year. I'm hoping the bye week helped him get healthy and ready to go. Should still play a ton. Good chance to rebound post-bye, and I don't think he's going to lose his job when somebody else comes back for Atlanta. In fact, I don't even know who would come back for Atlanta to take work away from Darnell Mooney, whereas Trey Tucker might turn to dust when Brock Bowers comes back. Marquise Brown is almost certainly going to turn into dust when Rashee Rice comes back. So there's a little bit more long-term appeal for Mooney.
Okay, so I'll recap all the top threes when we're done with this exercise. But Jamie, how about the top 3 tight ends?
Mason Taylor would be 1. Theo Johnson would be 2, and AJ Barner would be 3. Just looking at Taylor, we talked about this enough. Opportunity has been great. The targets the last 3 games have been amazing. Theo Johnson now 7 targets. He's got 12 targets in the 2 starts with Jackson Dart, and Darius Slayton may not play. And AJ Barner, 7 targets, 7 catches, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns in his last game. He's got now 4 touchdowns in his last 4 games, 3 in his last 2. So doing a good job finding the end zone. And again, if Sam Darnold starts to throw the ball a little bit more, Barner, by the way, one of the more underrated touchdown celebrations when he scores. So does the little robot thing. So those will be the 3. But it's a very good position for this week because you got Harold Fannin hopefully getting a little bit more involved with Dylan Gabriel. You have Evan Ingram coming off 2 weeks with 13 targets, scoring his first touchdown. Jake Tongas, if you need a 1 week situation, had a huge game last week, and again, favorable matchup this week. So there's a lot of guys that you can sort of find your way through or navigate through the position if you can't get your hands on Mason Taylor.
Barner with 4 touchdowns on 16 targets this year. Pretty good. Kyle Pitts is 67% rostered. David Njoku 69% rostered. Do you like Mason Taylor? You both have Mason Taylor as your number 1 tight end. How would you compare Mason Taylor to Njoku and Pitts?
Rest of season, I would go Taylor still first, then Njoku, then Pitts. But they're all right in that top 10 range.
I would take Pitts first, Taylor second, Njoku third.
Okay. Kyle Pitts has scored 7.7 or more PPR fantasy points in every game. It's not really amazing or anything, but
1 touchdown, yeah.
Not bad. Only 1 touchdown for him.
The hope would be is that what we saw from Njoku with Dylan Gabriel is sustainable.
Absolutely.
Could
Absolutely. Be. Well, now it's time for coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamie, give me a DST to stream this week.
You already said it. It's the Patriots. Just looking at their matchup this week, the way that they played. I mean, I think you heard me say it on Sunday that with the secondary healthy now, this is going to be a tough matchup across the board because they've been very tough to run against, which is, kind of alluding to why I said I would start Michael Carter over Alvin Kamara this week. They're tough to run against. They're tough to throw against at this point, and did a great job against Buffalo. And I think Mike Vrabel's, finally got the tools in place and the pieces in place with Christian Gonzalez back and, some guys up front that they'll be able to sort of, make things frustrating. But it's the upcoming schedule, especially this week's matchup against New Orleans. Patriots DST is going to, I think, help a lot of people win some games.
Yeah. Patriots DST with great matchups, not just this week, but coming up. And that was the coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Kickers to stream?
Did you mention Schrader's out for the season?
I did not. I should have mentioned that. It's a tough one for the Colts. Spencer Schrader out for the year.
Tough one for fantasy managers, too. He's been awesome.
Yes.
Just let me get there. Sorry.
I got you. It's Brandon
McManus is coming back off his bye. Jason Myers, who I thought would do a little bit better last week, but still gets Jacksonville. And then Chris Boswell also coming off his bye. McManus and Boswell have been very good fantasy kickers, so buy back into them.
And I'm sorry, I should have asked you for the other DSTs that you like. So in addition to the Patriots, it doesn't seem like it's a great week for streaming DSTs.
It's not. So you can just play the Raiders-Titans matchup and just see which quarterback is going to make the first mistake.
Raiders versus Titans. Both DSTs have not been so good. So not easy. So
I would be shocked if Max Crosby does not have 3 sacks in this game.
I'll take the under. Come on, man. First of all, the Titans, my new favorite team, we're on a 1-game winning streak here. Everything's looking up.
Is Jonathan Gannon now coaching the Raiders?
The Titans may not know this, and I'm not even sure this is true. They lead the NFL in interceptions thrown that have led to a touchdown for their own team. So they've got that going for it. I think it's true. Probably true. All right. Well, we want to know about the shallow leagues, the deep leagues. We're going to tell you about that after we take this break on Fantasy Football Today. We'll be right back.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
So we have touched on some of the shallow league players like Calvin Ridley, Michael Carter, and our favorite, Rico Dowdle. Jamie, other shallow leaguers. I wanted to ask you about Stafford because I don't think Stafford's how about this? Is Matt Stafford worth a top waiver priority? They have the pathetic Ravens this week, so he might be, but he's 88% rostered or something. But I'm just wondering if people picked up Stafford last week, should they hold on to him? Or
of course.
Okay.
He's top 5 quarterback this week.
Oh, and I like him better than Darnold.
Okay. So who else in the shallow league discussion do we need to know about?
At quarterback or everywhere?
Everywhere. Who are some of the best ones?
Well, you mentioned a few of the running backs. Obviously, Rico Dowdle and Michael Carter would headline the list just based on what they're hopefully going to do. If you want to stash CJ Stroud, it's back-to-back 22-plus point games. The schedule coming off the bye is miserable, but still looking at, you mentioned it, the bye weeks ahead. If you want to get ahead of it, he is maybe starting to play a little bit better. So he's the one quarterback that falls in this range. But obviously, if Stafford's on your waiver wire, make him the priority. At receiver, there's a bunch of guys. You mentioned Calvin Ridley, 72%, I believe, is what his roster percentage is on our site. Wan'Dale Robinson is probably going to get 100 targets now if Darius Slayton's out and the rest of the receiving core looking like it is. Cooper Kupp just had 9 targets. And so I think we talked about this last week. You said, are we dropping Cooper Kupp? And we said if they're going to throw the ball more, which was based on your theory, they did. And he had 9 targets. Not a huge game, but 6 catches. I would still look at him. Matthew Golden and Romeo Doubs, Dave mentioned that. Golden starting to play better in his last 2 games prior to his bye. Doubs coming off the 3 touchdown game. So clearly take a look and make sure those guys aren't on waivers. And then Juwan Jennings still falls in this range. I think at some point when he's healthy, he has 1 good game so far this season. He's been really banged up. But in that 1 game, he led the 49ers in targets. So we'll see what happens when he's healthy, what Pearsall's knee situation is, when Brandon Ayuk returns. A lot of moving parts clearly with the 49ers. But if you could stash Juwan Jennings, I would do so. And then at tight end, Kyle Pitts, you mentioned, David Njoku, you mentioned, both those guys coming off their last games. For Pitts, it was week 4 because of their bye. But best game for him, 18 PPR points in week 4. And then Njoku was just his first game with Dylan Gabriel, 18 PPR points as well. So both those guys should be rostered.
Yeah. Well, David Njoku, what are you kidding? Romeo Doubs, I had him 2 weeks ago when he caught 3 touchdowns. None of these guys are available in my league, Dave.
I'm glad you didn't do the Fonzie voice to introduce the deep league guys to add. Okay, quarterback, Mac Jones, McCorkle, he's real, 85% available. I don't think Brock Purdy is going to play. We're skipping over a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm going to do this at other positions too. Players who are available in around 50, 60% of leagues, that's not deep enough. We're trying to go really deep. So Mac Jones tops the list at quarterback. Jake Brown and Cam Ward, those are the other quarterbacks that you can go and get to potentially start this week. Good luck if you're using them. At running back, it's simple. When you go to the doctor, you check your vitals. When you wash your hair, you use Vidal Sassoon. And when you need a running back who's available in the 99% of leagues, Kimani Vidal is that guy. He's the number 1 player to add. His teammate Hassan Haskins is available in 97% of leagues. He would be another running back that would be definitely added in those deeper leagues. Isaiah Davis is a handcuff for the next 2 months. Breece Hall, he's on 86% of leagues. I would put him on the list as well. And then 2 deeper names. I already mentioned Amar Johnson. What about Jarquez Hunter in LA? After Blake Corum's ugly fumble, not fumble, but really it's on him that there was a fumble and Stafford lost 2 points because of it on Thursday. I wonder if Jarquez Hunter gets an opportunity. So deep league, tons of bench spots. Jarquez Hunter of the Rams may be worth picking up at running back. At wide receiver, Kendrick Bourne's available in a ton of leagues. He's an easy one to go and figure out. Torrey Horton, Jalen Coker, we've already kind of hinted at him. You can pick him up and stash him on your IR until he comes off of IR, and then you're going to have to make a decision about whether or not you want to keep him on your bench or not. But 79% of leagues he's available. Could be the number 2 target getter for Carolina the rest of the season. Big slot receiver, not a burner by any stretch, but someone who can use his size to win, especially in the red zone. I like Coker quite a bit, actually. So if you can get your hands on him, you can. We haven't talked about Ryan Flournoy yet. He had a monster game for Dallas on Sunday. I don't know how feasible it is that he can keep it up. CeeDee Lamb's eventually going to be back. When he's back, Flournoy could turn into total dust.
Dave, do you think Ryan has a high Flournoy?
Isaiah Bond is 87% available for the Browns, and he might be. There's an outside shot that he's the best Browns wide receiver rest of the season. It was an ugly game against Minnesota. But
wait, which one? Bond?
Again?
Bond?
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond?
And then Diami Brown had a decent game for Jacksonville. I can't really recommend him at 97% availability. Tight end, Mason Taylor, 76%. We'll talk about other tight ends. Jake Tongas, Jamie mentioned him. Really like what we've gotten out of him over the last couple of weeks. 89% available. AJ Barner, 98% available.
That's it. Those are all the puns I've got. So I said I'd recap top 3 at each position. Jamie gave us the quarterbacks: Darnold, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa. Running back, the top 3 were Dowdle and Carter, if they're available, followed by Vidal, Kendre Miller, Kenneth Gainwell. That was Dave's order. Jamie actually prefers Gainwell to Vidal. By the way, pronunciation police. It is Vidal, not Vidal. If you're Adam's such an idiot. I'm not, I promise. Wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. Take a look at those. See if the Packers wide receivers are available, specifically Dobbs, Rashid Shaheed, Darnell Mooney, and at tight end.
Coker's 2 for me, by the way.
What's that?
It's Bourne Coker for me.
Okay, Coker. Yeah. Mason Taylor is the number 1 tight end for both Dave and Jamie. Jamie likes Theo Johnson and AJ Barner. DSTs, really the Patriots are the prize this week. You can also take a look at the Titans and the Raiders. Okay. It's Team Name Tuesday. This one's from Russ. The bidet hurts my booty, and the bidet hurts my tootin' booty. So very mature. Yeah, not bad. From That's Michael. This one I think is really great. Orange Mocha Frat Pacheco. You get that? No, you don't really. I think it's great. Noah has Bijan the box score.
It's good.
That's pretty good. Clever. And Matthew has the very simple, very effective Tootin' Ertz. Jacksonville 31, Kansas City 28. Both quarterbacks led their teams in rushing. And Kareem Hunt had a 33-yard carry, which is tied for his longest carry in his last 7 seasons, and also longer than any carry that Alvin Kamara has had in his last 5 seasons. But Jacksonville 31, Kansas City 28. Jamie, any big fantasy takeaways here?
Brian Thomas still tough to trust. I know he had the big catch down the sideline at the end of the game, but still need more from him. It's just frustrating. I know he had the pass interference call in the end zone too, but you just want to see more. I do like the fact that it was, the throw in the honey hole and he was going to take a shot and he still caught it. So hopefully he's not shying away from contact. But this was Lawrence's best game in a win. He had been terrible in their 3 other victories. And it was because of his rushing totals. So just keep that in mind. His schedule is interesting coming up in the next I think they have a week 8 bye, but schedule's coming up. That's interesting for him. So if you're looking at him, I added him to the list. He might not see it. So I put him in the column late last night. 49% rostered. So really it was the one disappointment for me was Worthy, and thankfully he wasn't injured when he came down with the ankle or came up hobbling with the ankle injury. But you want to see a little bit more from him, clearly. Targets were okay, but just not the production.
Yeah. No, I think I'm done even considering, this could be a really stupid thing to say, but even considering Brian Thomas as a buy low, I just don't see it. I hope it happens, but how could you, what is there to give you optimism? It's not like, oh, they came so close to having a big game. It's just not happening right now.
If you were good at running back, would you trade Michael Carter straight up for Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good idea.
So if you can buy really low, then sure. But I think if we view him as a low-end number 2 receiver moving forward, we'll be okay. And maybe he continues to snap out of it. Maybe he sees more targets, and maybe he goes back to being the stud that we draft him to be. But there's just not enough evidence. I think he's moving in the right direction, but just not as fast as we want him to.
All right. I don't really know if there's much else from this game. Kelsey was 80% started. He came through with a very good game. Mahomes has now scored over 28 fantasy points in 3 of 5 games. Very impressive. He throws a ton. And by the way, the Jaguars are seeing the 2nd most pass attempts per game in the NFL. Who are they playing this week? They're playing Seattle, so we're hoping for that for Darnold. Who sees the most pass attempts per game in the NFL? That would be the Cardinals. And Sam Darnold threw 24 times or something like that against the Cardinals. So you just never know. But for whatever reason, teams are throwing and throwing and throwing on Jacksonville. The Jags have had a lead in a lot of their games. I think that's part of it. Travis Hunter, 75% rostered. Got him a little more involved. But it's funny to say that. But he briefly left with an injury, but he had 3 targets, 3 catches, 64 yards. Drop or hold Travis Hunter?
Drop.
He's droppable for sure.
9.4 PPR points per game or less in every game this season. No touchdowns yet on the season. I don't know what you're expecting from him at this point.
If we were to create something called a drop-o-meter, he would, and it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 means definitely drop this guy and 1 means no, keep him. He'd be at least an 8, if not a 10.
Oh, I don't think I have time for another segment, Dave, but you know what? I'll give it a shot. Let's try it. Drop-o-meter. I'm going to just throw some names out there. Didn't prepare for this at all. Mark Andrews on the drop-o-meter, 0 to 10. 10 being drop him immediately. 0 is stop playing fantasy football if you're even asking about dropping this guy. Mark Andrews.
5.
7.
Yeah, remember, he has the Rams and then a bye. So if you're not going to start him this week, you're not going to start Andrews next week. T. Higgins, 0 to 10.
0.
1.
So I should stop playing fantasy football, Jamie? That's what you're telling me?
Probably. Well, you said
No.
you said
We
that
want you
before.
playing against us.
You said that before the show. You were done.
Yeah, Hampton. I'm a big Hampton guy, so it was not good news for my teams. RJ Harvey, 0 to 10.
0.
Yeah, it's low. 0, 1, 2, whatever.
Travion Henderson.
0.
-0.
Woody Marks.
Is -0 a thing? I don't think so. Woody Marks is also a 0.
Zach Ertz.
5. Same as
7.
Andrews.
Okay, 1 target for Zach Ertz. Played about, I think.
We know that he's okay. He played 30 snaps, and he did play into the fourth quarter, but it didn't seem like he was in his usual. Like it didn't seem like he was like in a normal role for him.
It would be interesting if they gave Ben Sinnott some more work.
Yeah, someone's asking about Jawan Johnson. We can throw him on the drop-o-meter as well. And he played 85% of the snaps, so he just didn't get targeted, but his ball was not affected yet.
10.
I'm not going to go that high. I'll say 6, but it's interesting that he sees his target volume dwindle and his numbers dwindle the first time that both Foster Moreau's back and Taysom Hill is back for the Saints.
Feels more like coincidence to me, though.
It might be, and that's why I'm not
just
in a
1 week,
hurry
though.
to get rid of him. But he is, if you need the bench shot, like, would you rather have Mason Taylor or Jawan Johnson rest of the season?
Taylor.
I will pivot. I will take Taylor over Jawan Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's get back into the waiver wire. I'll give you a recap and some of the names that you may have that we need to talk more about. So at quarterback, the shallow league guy was CJ Stroud, but really it's not. Jacob talked about it yesterday. They've changed their offense. He's getting the ball out much quicker over the last 2 weeks, and it's working. He's also faced Tennessee. They just have a bad defense. And Baltimore, who has right now probably the worst defense in football. Dallas would have something to say about that. But
It's so beat up. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's had 2 very good matchups, and they've been able to run the ball in those matchups. And I think that's helped Stroud stay comfortable.
Okay. So I don't think we're sitting here going, you got to stash CJ Stroud. The ads for this week are Sam Darnold, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. Those appear to be our top 3. There is another wild card that we have to talk about, and it's Bryce Young facing the Dallas Cowboys. But Sam Darnold, who are some quarterbacks that you would start him over this week? Would you start him over Justin Fields against the Broncos?
No.
Would you start him over Kyler Murray at the Colts?
Yes.
Daniel Jones in that game?
Yes.
No.
So Dave would go with Darnold over Jones, and Jamie would go with Jones over Darnold. Okay, I'll stop there. Let's talk about Bryce Young, since we already got into Darnold, Tua, and Mac Jones. Bryce Young facing the Cowboys. They are, it's the best matchup, but he's only had 1 good game so far. Where do you guys have him
so far?
What's that?
He's had 1 good half so far.
He threw 55 passes and scored 27 points at the Cardinals in week 2. Where do you guys have Bryce Young right now?
Just behind Darnold, Tua, and Mac Jones, in that same range as Kyler. I hope that he takes advantage of the matchup, but it's just, I think you see what he is at this point, especially with the interior offensive line being a mess for them. It's just, it's such a problem for him at his size. Like, he needs to be protected up front, and he's just not getting that right now. So he could have a good game, but like you said, his best game, his best half, he threw 55 times, to get there. And so hopefully Jalen Coker's return, which could happen this week, it's not guaranteed, will give him another weapon that he trusts and can make plays for him. I thought the throw to Xavier Legette was amazing for the touchdown.
Yes.
So,
and the second throw he made to Legette, I think late in the game, and then he threw one to Horn late in the game. I actually thought Brett Young had a very strong second half in this game. But
look, he has, this has been his career. He's had spurts of, showing why he's the number 1 overall, was the number 1 overall pick. It's just like not consistent. And, you could say coaching early, play early, line early, now offensive line again, weapons, which they thought was a strength when they traded Adam Thielen, not being healthy. But this is a game where they're going to lean on their run game, and it's just the expectations should be maybe a 20-point game at best.
I thought the Cowboys pass rush and pass defense overall was pretty good in the first half against the Jets. They were all over Justin Fields. I know Fields looked terrible in the first half of that game, and really Fields didn't get a lot of his numbers until the fourth quarter. He kind of did what Bryce Young did against Arizona, where the opponent really didn't care. They had a big enough lead that they just said, go ahead, knock yourself out, put up some garbage points. And Justin Fields did that, and he was awesome. And I think that's what you have to hope for if you start Bryce Young this week. He is not a top 15 quarterback for me.
Okay. 4 of the 5 quarterbacks to face the Cowboys have thrown for a season high in yards. It's just the best matchup.
The only thing that's frustrating for Bryce Young is he was doing this at the end of last year. He's not running anymore.
Right. 100%. Dylan Gabriel scored 20 points against the Falcons. He's another guy that you could look at. It'd be the Vikings.
Minnesota Falcons.
The Minnesota Falcons. The Minnesota Falcons. Pittsburgh right now is 29th against quarterbacks. Miami is 30th against quarterbacks.
Pittsburgh's misleading, though.
Yeah, I know. New England's 21st. That's probably misleading. The Jets are 28th. The Ravens are 31st. So the Browns have, on paper, a great schedule, but a lot of those teams have been injured.
But it's more, he should be rostered in Superflex and 2 QB leagues. He's not a 1 QB guy.
Well, he probably is. He's 12% rostered. But what about also picking up Brett Rippon just to throw it.
Well, to your point, there's just quarterback news right now in Cincinnati.
What is it?
They have released Mike White.
Okay. All right, let's go to running backs here. Also, if you need a quarterback, Carson Wentz could keep the job. And then the last one, I'm sorry, any interest in Jackson Dart? Eagles, Broncos, Eagles next 3 weeks.
It's just so hard with his receiving core being what it is and the matchups that he has. Plus, is it sustainable? Is he going to rush for 50 yards every game? So he's definitely in the conversation. I just looked at the matchups and the quarterbacks there. They're like, I don't have him ranked ahead of any of the guys we talked about.
No. And there's also now concern about his health. He's already got a hamstring injury that's limited him in practice this week. If they keep running him over and over again, we're going to see Russ.
Okay. Running back news. Running back waivers, sorry. Rico Dowdle would be the best. Michael Carter would be the second best. Kenneth Gainwell would be the one with the hairy chest. Remember that? Well, Jamie likes Kenneth Gainwell better than Vidal. Dave likes Vidal better than Gainwell, right?
I like Vidal and Kendre Miller better than Gainwell as far as waiver ads go this week.
And then there's Haskins, who, could be the guy. Maybe you throw a $2 bid on Haskins or something like that. You never know. Kendre Miller. Now,
I'll tell you, I'd rather do that from a fab perspective than spend big on Vidal.
Would you rather spend $10 on Vidal or $2 on Haskins?
$2 on Haskins.
$10 on Vidal.
Kendre Miller. People seem to think Kamara might get traded. Do you think Kamara is going to get traded?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would think if there's the right offer out there, it's one of those things where he means so much to that team. Like, just for example, small thing, they get their first win. He's the one that gave Kellen Moore the game ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's still this is a franchise that is wasting the latter years of Cam Jordan, of allowing him to go get a ring or play somewhere else. Like, I don't know if they're going to do that.
Did you see what Demario Douglas said about Cam Scatterbo?
Demario Davis.
Demario Davis said
Yes,
about
I
kids.
saw that.
It's so funny. He's like a little kid, like always kicking his legs. It was really funny. Tyrone Tracy, speaking of Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy might play this week, and he's 65% rostered. What do we think? Anybody want to?
Definitely worth a look, especially after the fumble.
Yep.
So it's again somebody that you don't have to put a huge premium on to pick up this week if he's out there, but you never know how this may shake out, especially with their receiving core being as bad as it is for a former receiver. You may have both these guys on the field a lot at the same time.
You might be able to get him with your last waiver claim, a $1 fab bid. I don't know how many people are thinking about Tyrone Tracy.
He's so unlikely to score because that is Scatterbo land even before the injury.
And Dart's running.
Yeah. Tajay Spears didn't play much. Maybe he'll get a bigger role this week. We had a fumble from Pollard. Anytime a running back fumbles, they could be one fumble away from losing some playing time.
Unless you're Ramondre Stevenson, who just fumbles and gets every opportunity.
Ramondre,
I was going to make this joke that Amari DiMercado, if he continues to fumble, he'll be the starter for the Patriots.
All right, we got Trevor Etienne, Isaiah Davis, and Emmanuel Wilson, who's a handcuff that no one ever talks about. But Emmanuel Wilson for the Packers.
Is it him or is it Marshawn Lloyd?
I would guess it's him at this point. We don't know when Lloyd's going to return. Two other handcuffs that are out there. I didn't write about them because there's really nothing to say outside of just pick them up as handcuffs. Brian Robinson Jr. and Tyler Algier are just floating out there in some leagues. They're an injury away from being lottery tickets.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd. Do you know Marshawn Lloyd can't triple stamp a double stamp? Lloyd. Okay. So Kareem Hunt, any interest in picking him up? He had 2 touchdowns. He's 70% rostered. And then Nick Chubb, 78% rostered, just throwing it out there. If you saw those names, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, any interest there?
Minimal.
They're good bench depth, but that's it. Bye week
wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jamie kind of, he's 82% roster. Fine, whatever. You kind of said he could get a ton of targets if Slayton's out, which good chance it's going to happen with this short week. I don't really would you start Wan'Dale Robinson on Thursday?
If there's no Slayton in 3 receiver PPR leagues, he'd be in the conversation.
Okay, fine. Cooper Kupp, Matthew Golden, Jawan Jennings, Romeo Dobbs. Who's your favorite from that group of 4? Kupp, Golden, Jennings, Dobbs.
Dobbs right now.
Dobbs.
And what if I threw Calvin Ridley in there?
Ridley would be my favorite.
Dobbs would still be my favorite. Golden would still be ahead of Ridley.
All right, let's add Kendrick Bourne, but cautiously, because if they get healthy, I don't think we're going to want to start Kendrick Bourne. 142 yards last week. Wow. Jalen Coker.
Amazing. And to Jamie's point on making him a priority, I don't think we should expect Pearsall and Jennings back this week. One of them could come back. Both of them might not come back. But as long as both of them don't, and we already know Kittle's basically not going to play, you're going to get a week out of Bourne. And if it was last week, it was amazing. I don't think he'll be that good this week, but he could get a ton of volume again, end up being a total stud in PPR. So he's my favorite receiver to pick up too.
And in deep leagues, I mean, Demarcus Robinson had 7 targets last week. Yeah, he didn't do much with it, but he could. He's only 15% rostered. Obviously, Bourne, much bigger priority at 4% rostered. Jalen Coker is
this week too, right?
What'd you say? What'd you say? Good matchup?
Yeah, it's a better matchup because Tampa Bay's secondary is all beat up.
Coker, we don't know that he'll be back this week, but we're hoping he gives the offense a little jolt. Trey Tucker, involved with 6 targets, gets deep. He gets a lot of deep balls, so he could always make a big play. Rashid Shaheed against the Patriots, not the easiest matchup. Ryan Flournoy. Now, keep in mind with Flournoy, I'm sure Jamie would bring this up, but he got 9 targets. George Pickens had 3, and he was shadowed by Sauce Gardner. So, it probably won't be the same type of target volume for Flournoy, but you never know because they throw 40 times a game.
Well, you also have CeeDee Lamb's potential return, and this also came in a game where Kavonte Turbin did not play. So there's injuries that could clearly impact the guy that's done nothing prior to this in his career.
I'm also pretty sure Tolbert played more than Flournoy in the game, for whatever that's worth.
Dave already talked about Isaiah Bond, who had 7 targets. Darnell Mooney's coming back. We would love for him to rediscover that form he had last year. 52% rostered. I don't know for a fact that he's playing this week, but it seems like he will. Darnell Mooney. Josh Downs is solid. Torrey Horton has 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games. And Christian Watson, 12% rostered, should be back sometime in the next 3 weeks. And then there's a guy like Troy Franklin. I feel like Troy Franklin could.
Yeah.
I like Franklin this week. I should have added him. I do like him this week.
Right, because Sutton's going to get. Sutton's going to get sauced, and number two. I
don't know if Sutton's going to get sauced. I don't know if this is. You mentioned the hand fighting. I think Sutton's going to get his targets though.
Oh, he's going to get his targets. I do think that Sauce will shadow him though.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes,
they will put some sauce on Sutton, But Calvin Austin, Emeka Ibuka, Ryan Flournoy, these are 3 number 2 wide receivers who were better than the number 1 wide receiver that was shadowed by Sauce Gardner.
Which means it'll be Marvin Mims.
Yeah, it could easily. All right, tight ends. We got David Njoku and Kyle Pitts available in shallow leagues. I think Dave prefers Pitts and Jamie Njoku. Did I get that right?
Yep. Of those 2, yes.
Okay. And then we got Mason Taylor, who's everyone's favorite. But refresh my memory. Njoku, Pitts, Taylor, who's your favorite of those 3?
Taylor.
Pitts.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about Pitts is like the last game we saw him go nuts because Mooney was out in week 1. He played well with Mooney out. Like he needs Mooney to be out, I think, to be the best version of Kyle Pitts.
Brenton Strange was on the waiver wire list. He got hurt last night, but if you see him practicing this week and he's ready to play against Seattle, might not be the worst move. Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, AJ Barner are next. Jake Tongas has been pretty solid. He had 11 targets and a touchdown last week. Tampa Bay has allowed 2 touchdowns to a tight end in consecutive weeks, and that's Jake Tongas's matchup this week. Then you got Harold Fannin Jr. You got Evan Ingram. Colston Loveland is interesting.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought him up.
Right, there's just so many guys, and then Jamie had a good sleeper on the early waiver wire show yesterday, and Michael Mayer, who actually has what looks like a pretty tough matchup against Tennessee, but Bowers is week to week, and Mayer had the concussion, so hopefully he's back this week. But I don't know. I said a lot of names there that we haven't talked about, Dave. I said Tongas, Fannin, Ingram, Loveland, Mayer. Thoughts on that group of 5?
How much time do we have? Because I'd love to say a little something about all of them, but I also know that we need to go like one at a time, and we're getting near the end of the show.
Yeah, I'll give you 2 minutes.
All right, so let's start with Theo Johnson, who, if there's no Darius Slayton, he's going to continue to see an uptick in targets like we've seen the last couple of weeks. He's a big physical target. He's not like quick by any stretch of the imagination. He's more of a big lug who can win on contested catches. And I don't like the matchup against Philadelphia, but he could have one of those Zach Ertz lines as a floor. That's 5 for 50. That's 10 PPR points, 7 red zone targets, 4 end zone targets for Theo Johnson. That's way better than what we've seen for even Mason Taylor this year. And so I think there's a good opportunity for Theo Johnson. If you need a 1-week plug at tight end, especially if Slayton's out, I really would consider Theo Johnson. Loveland is a rest of season play. And the Bears coming off the bye, we saw it in the game where Loveland got hurt in, got some targets early. It looked like the Bears were getting ready to start to use him a little bit more in the offense. They could keep going in that direction if he's healthy and good to go in that game, or it might have been the game after that. I'm sorry, but one of those games, Cole Kmet had 9 targets and looked like a total mess. He only had 3 catches. Loveland is a great stash. He could end up being the next Mason Taylor, meaning rookie tight end that's getting a lot of opportunities. Absolutely would go and try and stash Loveland and see what you get out of him for the next week or two. I'm assuming that he's going to be active for their game this week. Jake Tongas, you talked about him. He's been outstanding, at least 14.8 PPR points each of his last 2 games, but absolutely a short-term option because once George Kittle comes back, Tongas is a goner. And then Barner has scored a lot of touchdowns. Jamie talks about the dance. I think it's cool what he does, but that's an offense with JSN, Cooper Kupp, and I think Barner's just like a short area target. Doesn't get a lot of first reads. Does get a little bit of attention in the red zone, obviously, but not somebody that I would want to confidently start regardless of the matchup. And it's Jacksonville this week. We saw Jacksonville do bad against Kelsey. They're not exactly the same type of player. So put me in the camp of Theo Johnson over AJ Barner as far as tight ends that you might use as a 1-week option. Tongas would also be ahead of Barner.
There are 2 tight ends on the waiver wire that are facing a team that has allowed 4 touchdowns to tight ends in their last 2 games. One of them I mentioned is Jake Tongas. The other one is Evan Ingram. He's facing the Jets. In their last 2 games, they've given up 4 touchdowns to Darren Waller and Jake Ferguson. That is not the most reliable thing to go off of. That's the way it goes with tight end, but thought I'd mention that.
They're a crummy defense that's missing its best pass rusher, one of its best middle linebackers.
No, he's coming back, though, Jermaine Johnson.
Is he? Well, that actually would help them a little bit, and it hurts Bo Nix. Not that I'm a huge fan of Bo Nix this week anyway. I just feel like Ingram's got low upside. A lot of short targets for him this year. Not a lot downfield.
One thing I have noticed is that over the last 2 weeks, Troy Franklin's ADOT has gone up. And I think it might be because Evan Ingram is now playing that role that I thought Troy Franklin had stolen from Evan Ingram. Ingram back to getting those short targets. All right, DST's Patriots, definitely top of the list. Raiders, Titans behind them. Hopefully you don't need a DST this week, but the Patriots have a great matchup this week and a great matchup in 4 of their next 5 weeks. Brandon McManus, Jason Myers, Chris Boswell are your streaming options at kicker. We will just end with this comment if I could find it. It was LMAO. Adam is Fonzie. I can't comment on that. What do you guys think?
You are way more Potsy than Fonzie.
Yeah. Am I Fonzie? Like, do you think Adam Azer is Fonzie?
That could work.
Was he cool? He was cool, right? People liked him?
Yeah, that's why you're not Fonzie.
He was like the coolest. I would assume considered one of the coolest TV characters of all time.
Yeah, well, I was nominated for Homecoming King and Prom King. What could I say?
And the backup goalie on your soccer team.
I was, yeah. This is really good.
And you drove everybody around.
We'll talk to you at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Have a great day, everybody. See ya.